Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wytpod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at Wytlabs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And I've got Kenneth Burke with me today. He's a VP of Marketing at Text Request, which is a business texting platform built to ignite customer engagement. A big welcome to you, Kenneth, and I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Let's start with sharing your journey within the organization. You're pretty interesting and you've been in the organization for so many years. And please tell us a bit more about your role as VP marketing at Text Request.
Yeah, I typically say I got here through serendipity. I was in sales and I was looking for a switch, and a good friend of mine was helping to start the company.
Mhm.
And he said, "Come join us." And so I started at Text Request as an entry level business development rep, cold calling people basically. The company had just launched 6 or 8 weeks before I started, so we were very new.
Mhm.
And I got burned out on cold calling, and nobody in the company was doing marketing yet. And so 4 or 5 months into the role, they let me kind of pivot and start trying this marketing thing.
Nice.
And I started as basically just blogging and doing some social media for us and some email, anything that revolved copywriting really, and made a ton of mistakes. But we had a few victories, had a few wins, and then just grew and developed from there and worked my way up. I've been VP of marketing here for the last, has it been 3 years? Oh man. Okay. So 3 years now, I've been VP here, and day to day, it looks managing our marketing strategy and contributing to the company's overall strategy and goals. And then splitting time between project management related to our strategy and actually producing. So I'm still a contributor. I'll still write content. We have our own podcast like this. We focus more on franchises for that one. So there's still a lot that I'm creating day to day, but yeah, we've got a team who's pretty good as well now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And can you please provide a quick overview of Text Request and some of its unique value propositions in the space here?
Yeah, would love to. So text requests, we're a business text messaging software, and our shtick is that we add texting to your business phone numbers so that you can text with your customers and employees from your computer or
Mhm.
any other device that you would use. So you can stop making phone calls that nobody answers and start actually getting responses from people. Especially whenever we were getting going, we saw one of the biggest points of friction for most businesses, especially service related businesses, was that you had to actually communicate with customers in order to book an appointment or arrive at their house or get paid. And because nobody was answering phone calls and emails could take 6 or 24 or 100 hours before anybody would see them, there were a lot of opportunities falling through the cracks, and it was just creating a lot of friction for companies. And so we created this conversational messaging platform for those businesses to use that has been pretty well tailored to small businesses over the years, but we've, like most companies, increasingly gone up market, and it's worked out pretty well so far. So that's us.
Can you tell us a bit more about your target ICP?
Yeah, so there's three that we work with, but our bread and butter is a small business owner or office administrator. So it's essentially somebody who, let's say, they're going to have fewer than 50 employees, but more importantly, just about everything runs through them. They're going to have the final say on sales and marketing initiatives. They're going to be managing and tracking the budget for all departments. They're going to be working with customers directly. They're going to be fielding customer service complaints or compliments. And so for these people, they're really looking to minimize the number of things they have to do every day. And if somebody, I'll stick with phone calls. If somebody doesn't answer a phone call, that means you have to then call them again later, put in more effort to reach them and get a response. And that just adds to their to-do list, and they don't like that. And so if we can add texting as a solution, a channel solution for payments, for sales, for marketing, for earning online reviews, for scheduling appointments, whatever it is, that makes their life way easier. They can make more money. They can spend more time with their kids and their families. Then it just goes really well.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk marketing. I would love to know any key marketing strategies that have been particularly successful for you and basically has done good with respect to the revenue numbers and your overall company goals.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see how it shifts over the years. Whenever we were just not quite whenever we were just starting, but after we'd gotten a little bit of traction and we'd gotten product market fit, we started leaning really heavy into blogging and SEO.
Mm.
And that took a while for us to grow. It followed the typical recommendations. It took 6 months before we saw much traction there, and then it was another 6 months before it was a significant revenue producer. In the meantime, the content was helpful for the sales process because reps could just share it with somebody they were talking to as a proof of concept or to validate the sales pitch. But it was a good year more before it was a pure inbound revenue producer. But then we ended up having almost a fully inbound pipeline, which was pretty awesome. So that was one. Cold outreach has always been valuable for us and a pretty prominent part of our marketing and our sales. And it's bounced back and forth between who's managing it, whether marketing is managing it or sales is. At the moment, it's primarily under sales. But
Is it like phone calls, or are you leveraging emails as well? Or LinkedIn? What?
yeah, so I was going to go into that. We started with phone calls and then it was just a numbers game. We had a small team, so we turned to emails and we would take an industry that we worked with. Let's say it was HVAC service companies, and we would look up every HVAC company in a certain city and then email them and then just do that for every city in every state. And then move on to another industry like pest control or cleaning services. And so we had emails going very strong. And then at some point, that method tapped out. And so we put it to rest for a while. And then we picked up cold calling again and we hired a team of BDRs, and that's been working really well. And we're looking at adding email back into it again. And there's so many other marketing tactics I can go into, but I don't want to just keep rambling. So let me know what you're interested in.
No. Cold email specifically has become tough now compared to what it used to be. Like there's so many new changes coming along. Like Gmail launched date, they're coming up with another, especially for the bulk emailers launching 1st of February. Like, the same goes with Yahoo and Bing. So yeah, that's very tricky now compared to cold calling. Again, like cold calling, like in my experience, I've seen ups and downs. A few years back, it used to be a very like one of the biggest challenges specifically for the services sector for generating new leads and stuff and business. But yeah, then again it faded. Now again, like I'm seeing a lot of people doing really well with respect to cold calling. Yeah, I think trend comes and goes, and yeah, good to see you. You put one channel on rest instead of exploiting it all the way and try out new things, and that's something that's brilliant, to be honest.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I definitely agree with things come in cycles.
yeah.
And I think one thing that's been really helpful for us is just how well we've defined our target customer and who we're going after. And that's an ever evolving process, but we're in a good place with it now.
Okay. And because you mentioned SEO as well, I would love to know any specific strategies around SEO that really worked. Is it link building or just putting down tons of content around your space and building the authority? What really worked for you?
Yeah, I'll say one thing that worked really well, or two things that worked really well, and then one thing that didn't work like we thought it was going to. So, first, that worked really well was creating content for other writers to use. And early on, it was just me who was doing the writing, the content creation. And I'm just one person. I can't do everything. And I thought, what is something that we can create that's related to text messaging that other people who are trying to create content would also want to reference? And so what we came up with was not necessarily a series, but multiple pieces of content that were statistics and research related. So for the longest time, if you searched anything about how many texts do people send every day or how many emails or when's the best time to send a message, we were going to be the first people who showed up in search. And the way we did it is we picked a topic like that a stat that lots of writers are going to need who are talking about digital marketing or channels, created something good and useful around it, cited our sources, looked trustworthy and all of that. And then the content was decent enough that it would rank, and then the top 10, and then people who are looking to write articles would do a Google search and then just click on the first 10 or 15 pages to just to start filtering through what's going to be good, what's going to actually have a good nugget I can use. And we had a few nuggets. And so then we started earning backlinks that way. And it was a self-perpetuating cycle where the more backlinks we got, the higher we ranked. The more backlinks we got, the greater our authority. And so we did that again and again, and it worked really well. And then the second thing that worked was basically teaching people how to write good text messages. This is text specific, but you see it really commonly in across industries. It's essentially people looking for a template
Mm.
or a checklist for something. And so we had a guide on, we still have this and it still gets good traffic, how to write professional text messages that customers will actually like. And it has a bunch of samples and a bunch of how to, and it walks you through how to create your own content again and again for text campaigns. And then we had a bunch of pages that were just templates of SMS templates for sales follow ups, for marketing and promotions, for hiring and recruiting, et cetera, et cetera. And so that got a lot of good traffic. And then the thing that didn't work like we thought it was going to was allowing contributed content on our website.
Mhm.
And it worked for volume because everybody wanted to contribute, enter a backlink and get a byline and all those things. But it was really tough to manage the writers. It was tough to have their writing fit within our brand guidelines
Gotcha.
and even to have it to be particularly on topic because it would be something like, I don't know, it might be how to run an HVAC business, but it would have nothing to do with texting. It might be how to manage the contractors within that business. And so it was just a little bit off. Like we could edit it to make it work, but it would all of that together, it became more work than it was worth.
Yeah. I think most of the people who, look for search opportunities, they just want to get place their backlink on your site. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
they try to even align the content with whatever business they kind of want to promote on that specific piece of content. I understand the pain. I used to run a blog in the past. Yeah, I get that. Right. Can you tell me one thing? How was the experience business wise and your growth wise during the COVID time? What marketing efforts were really working for you? How was the traffic? How was the lead generation?
Yeah, it was a wild time. So basically, whenever COVID really hit in the States and in Tennessee in particular, I remember it was March 13th, 2020. Everybody had to close their businesses and go home.
Yeah.
And so we all went home and we were in office. We were flexible work schedules and things like that, but we were all in office and most everybody was based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we're still based. And so we had to figure out not necessarily how do we do the work, but how do we manage people in a remote environment. That was interesting. But lead funnel wise, things really blew up for us in a good way because all of a sudden everybody was having to figure out how do I connect with customers. The word that was really hot at the time was contactless. So, how do I have contactless interactions with my customers? And if you are in a lot of our customers were in home service, how do you collect payments if you're at somebody's house, but you can't actually see them and you have to be separate or outside? And text could be a function there. Or how do you send reminders if you don't see people, if they don't come to your checkout counter? There are all these little things like that. And so we just had a boom that entire spring. We got into or text messaging in the political space also blew up the second half of 2020 for better or worse. So we did benefit from that at the time. And then a lot of I hate to use the term new normal because it was so overly used. A lot of these businesses got into a habit where they realized they didn't need to be face to face with their customers all the time, that customers actually liked or maybe even preferred digital communications instead. And so that was helpful for all of that was helpful for accelerating our pipeline and then accelerating referrals and all the extra things that come from just having more customers. So it was complete chaos behind the scenes. The bottom line looked nice.
Kevin, can you tell me one more thing? Because like your experience in copywriting specifically has been like of so many years. So I would love to understand your approach or process that you take while generating a new content piece. How exactly that workflow looks like for you.
Yeah, it can vary a lot, but the framework I most commonly use and that I would have taught to our team is to find a question that our customers are asking. And we can do that basically three ways. We say one is customer complaints we get. So what are people confused about or unsure of or just upset about they didn't understand XYZ. So there's one. Number two is talking to the sales team. What are people asking once they're on the phone? Is there anything we can create around that to answer the questions before they get here? or to clarify something. And three, looking at any of the SEO tools out there, the search tools. So Google Trends, SEMrush or SEMrush now, Ahrefs. There's so many of them that will give you a feel for what people are searching for and how often. And for a lot of like our blog content, we mostly focused on informational intent searches. So how to do this, why is this important? Things along those lines, the questions. And then for our landing pages and our money makers, we were looking for buying intent searches. So things like business texting service or texting for a particular industry. So that was the framework we used to start with to see what's worth writing about. And then it was, okay, if we need to explain, I don't know, how to write a professional text message, can we do a few things? One, can we start a story to get people interested as opposed to just giving them quick bullet points? Can we put it into a framework that's easy to replicate? So here's 5 steps you can follow every time you need to do this. And then can we have some accompanying visuals that are going to, one, catch your eye as you're scrolling through the page, but two, also add to the explanations we're making. So maybe we have a graphic that's the anatomy of an SMS promotion, and we call out the different pieces that go into it, the excitement, the urgency, the actual offer, the call to action. So that's typically our process for creating content.
Yeah, that's fair. And because you're working with basically so many channels, I would love to understand what are the common challenges basically businesses face in implementing effective multi-channel marketing strategies, and how exactly do you overcome those challenges, like for your own?
Yeah, I would start with challenge number one is most people don't understand their customers well enough. And if you don't understand your customers and their journey, the path they're going through to buy something, it's going to be really tough to create a multi-channel marketing strategy that actually meets them every step of the way of that journey. And that's what you've got to do in marketing, right? You have to meet your customer where they are again and again. And if you do that, then when the time is right, they'll work with you. And so that's the main challenge. And then I think challenge two is understanding what do people need at each stage. And then challenge three is actually executing on giving it to them. And that can be, you may know what you need to give them at each stage, and it may just be an actual logistical problem, or you need your development team to build something out for a feature or a landing page or a lead capture, or you need a new feature to actually meet. For us, we use a combo of basically Google Analytics and some other analytics tools. So basically Google Analytics, we used Microsoft Clarity for heat mapping and user tracking or session tracking. And we used customer conversations with our sales team, but also deals won or loss notes. And so some things we could see whenever people came to our website, we could see they first wanted to look around at the homepage to see, hey, what exactly is that you do? Then they wanted to look at the pricing page to see if it's in budget or is it even worth talking about or spending time researching. Then they wanted to go to our demo page and see if they could just see what the product looks like. They go back to pricing to check a question. Then they would go to a product page to look at a particular feature. And pretty much most people followed that same 5-step process over and over again. So we saw that for our website and we said, okay, we can lean into this and we can improve things along that path. We saw in due diligence in our sales notes, basically, that we were creating a ton of opportunities that were coming in through Google search, whether it was organic or paid. And then we would lose out to a competitor. And so we did some research and talked to some customers, like, where do you go to make decisions, or how are you vetting things? And we found most of those that we were losing out on, it was because our competitors look stronger on review platforms and in places like social media accounts and their PR trail. And so we leaned more into asking for online reviews on G2 and Capterra and a couple other platforms. We put more effort into social media and growing a respectable audience there. We put a lot of effort into PR and sharing, I'll say press releases for lack of a better term, but just important updates and getting our story told in outlets, whether it was about the product or from the founder's perspective. So there are all these things that we did. And then it was for different stages of the funnel. And then you have to make sure people, there's stages. There's also hit different channels, but then you've got to make sure people across channels and across devices can still have the same experience. Yeah. So if they search, like, let's say they search text request reviews and they land on one platform, you make sure you're on all the platforms there that they can land on. You got to make sure it works well on mobile and on desktop. A lot of the what now I feel like basic best practices, you just have to check all those boxes and then make sure you look a little bit better than competitors.
Well, that's a brilliant approach. And yeah, you correctly mentioned that looking better than competitors, especially in SaaS sector, is way too important, man. Like not just SaaS, but in general nowadays, anything. And to be honest, in fact, PR again, like, is one of the biggest strategies that people have, and not just for good branding efforts, but because many other of your competitors are spending too heavily on that area altogether. That you gotta increase your visibility on as many channels as possible. Yeah, I do get that drift, and yeah, look, even to be honest, whenever I even take care of an on page or a link building strategy for a specific keyword, I do look into those ranking pages, how much better they're doing with respect to their on page, how good they are with their content, what kind of content they're putting, how many links they've got, and then make that strategic decision whether we should be chasing this or what should be the strategy around so that we can actually outbeat trying those competitors. It does make a lot of sense. And because we just talked about branding, PR, all of those things, you have a pretty great branded traffic on your site. What other strategies really help you have such a great percentage of branded traffic on your website?
So, what helps us have good branding on our website? Is that
Yep.
what we're looking for? Okay. One, and this is an ever evolving process as well, but one, a few years ago, we went through a pretty robust period of coaching where there was a brand a messaging agency that we were working with to help us figure out, okay, how do we as text request stand out in a unique way in a market that's pretty crowded? We all have the same value prop at the end of the day. It's text is a great channel, ours is a great easy to use platform for you to leverage that. And how do we stand out? And so we went through a lot of soul searching, I guess you would say, to figure out what our core pillars are, which is customer service, ease of use, expertise. And we're just so more, we're so much more casual or laid back and helpful as a software company as opposed to the typical enterprise businesses where we're going to make you walk through a 10-step process before you can schedule a demo. And then we're not going to talk to you when you need customer service unless you pay us extra. We went a different direction and that works for us. Anyway, we went through all of this. We happen to have a very good designer on our team already who is responsible for leading the charge on our brand appearance, who worked with some other contractors to help along the way. And then we've made some significant improvements. And so that's been the process. And then pulling it all together was or has been understanding what messaging, what value prop can we share that we know our target audience will resonate with, which in our case, it's text from your office phone number so you can send text instead of making calls and actually get responses now. And then how can we visualize that in a way that's helpful? And if you go look at textrequest.com or anything we have on our LinkedIn profile, you see what that looks like. And it's a combo of showing I guess the emotions a customer would feel as they're going through the process and also showing what the product looks like and how it works. And then yeah, now you got a team of designers who help us with whatever we need.
Gotcha. Wait, can you tell me one more thing? You have received some very notable awards in the past, Technology Company of the Year. How exactly your marketing strategy contributed for these industry recognition? And yeah, then what impact did it bring to your brand's image? Did you measure it like any other? I would even love to know, is there a process how you measure the brand value or how exactly does that happen within the organization?
Yeah, so I'll start with our approach for it. And our approach is to pick a consistent story or to pick a story that we can tell consistently. And so we have one that we tell customers, which is text so you can get responses and stop having to make phone calls all the time. And then we have our kind of more of our brand story or our coming of age story, which is we're a high growth bootstrap SaaS company based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where people love to work. And so, in order to do any of those things or to back that up, to tell that story, we have to one, create a place where people love to work. That starts with culture. And we do things like celebrating the small victories. We do things like giving people autonomy in their work to really own their role, their unit, their task, own the successes and on the mistakes. But that autonomy helps a lot. We're very flexible with people as far as life things that come up. You need to take your kids to the doctor or pick them up from school, or you've got a family thing, or there's an opportunity to do something like this, or you need to go to a networking event. We work in software. There aren't that many hard deadlines that we really have to follow. And so we can leverage that to create a better work culture. So we do all these things, clear communication, vision casting, all that. That's one piece. Two is we have to actually be able to back up the high growth part, right? And so we're very metrics driven. We follow or at least on our marketing team, we follow the OKRs framework where define an objective, a key objective for the quarter. We define 3 to 5 key results we have to hit along the way in order to hit that objective. And then we pick a metric that we're going to measure it by so we can say, did we accomplish this? Yes or no? So we do that. We've done that for years. And when you put the culture together, the execution to hit high growth together, and then a consistent story that you can tell, all of a sudden things start to build for you. So we've been doing that for a while, and then we've been able to parlay that into award applications, whether it's Tech Company of the Year or it's being on the Inc. 5000 for the last 3 years, like we have been, or being recognized as the best place to work. We're telling that story constantly, and we've gotten pretty good at it. And then sometimes it's a numbers game of you got to apply to enough things, or you've got to be nominated enough times to win. But we've gotten, I don't know, 10 or 12 notable company awards that have been pretty good. But it's a result of those 3 things.
Awesome. And now on the customer retention side, what all things and what strategies have been really fruitful for you? And how exactly is the churn rate in the company?
Yeah, retention wise, I'll say one thing we do that's fairly atypical is we don't require contracts. It's actually pretty rare that we have a contract set up. It's usually a larger account, a mid market enterprise company who that's just part of their standard operating agreement, which is fine. But for everybody else, it's month to month. And we did that initially for 2 reasons. One, because we just needed revenue, and so we took out any objection we could find. And so that was early on, and it's stuck from that. But part of it, or a byproduct, is that we've had to prove our worth each month. We've had to get people to onboard very quickly and effectively. We've had to improve time to launch, so how quickly somebody can use the product and get value from it. And so we didn't necessarily set out to do that. It wasn't part of the grand scheme from the beginning, but that's played pretty heavily into where we are. And our retention for a small business focused company is very good, which is great. And a lot of it comes down to our people treating our customers the way they would want to be treated. One thing about a small business customer is they have very close relationships with all of their customers. And so they want the same kind of close relationships with their vendors. And we're unique in the tech space, I would say, in that we are able to build those close connections time and time again. So that really helps with retention. But then you still have to have a good product. It's got to be reliable. You have to be quick to respond and be helpful, all these things. And so we do that. It's been a continual building process, and it all just works together.
That's awesome, man. And now we're coming to an end, and I would love to have a quick rapid fire with you. Are you ready for that?
Hit me.
Okay. If given a superpower, what will you choose? Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
I'm going to say talk to animals.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. I actually, growing up for a while, I thought I was going to be a biologist. So I
Do you
would
have
be
any
pretty
pets?
interested in that. What was that?
Do you have any pets?
I have one dog now. She's a golden retriever named Luna. She is delightful and very fluffy.
Yeah, they're lovely. All right. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go?
The Renaissance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the fastest speed you have ever driven in a car?
Ooh, 65.
That's
65 miles an hour. That's what I'm going with.
okay. How many hours of sleep do you need?
How many hours of sleep?
Yeah.
I really need 8. I typically get 6 to 7.
Does your dog
Yeah.
wake you up early in the morning?
Sometimes, not as much anymore. Now it's mostly all of life is just on my mind, and trying to go to sleep is a little more challenging than it used to be. And then accordingly, I wake up a little earlier too.
Okay. Now, coming to my very last question, what's your last Google search?
Oh, I don't even know. Oh, I was trying to see how to get around a paywall so I could read a gated article,
Okay.
which for anybody in content marketing, great little tidbit. People will try to find a way around your gated content, or they will just not consume it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for sharing all your interesting lessons from past and your experiences. I really appreciate your time with me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.